This video contains spoilers from The Mandalorian and also potentially from all things Star Wars. Please be warned, the spoilers are about to begin.
Chewie, lock in the auxiliary power. Chewie, lock in the auxiliary power.
Boy, that Han Solo is lazy. So having recently finished The Mandalorian, which was brought to us by the relatively new streaming app service known as Disney+, I have to say, as a longtime Star Wars fan, I personally believe The Mandalorian is the best Star Wars content we've received since Return of the Jedi, all the way back in 1983. Right out of the gate, I was mighty impressed when I soon discovered that The Mandalorian featured none other than the great Carl Weathers.
You got me curious.
You got me curious, Rob.
Now, when I say I'm a longtime Star Wars fan, what I really mean by that is that I'm a longtime fan of the original Star Wars trilogy.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
I was a little young when the first two movies were released, but I remember becoming instantly obsessed when I was about 7 years old and HBO started airing the original movie seemingly on a non-stop loop. I loved the characters, I was captivated by the story, and the state-of-the-art special effects were just an added bonus. I loved Star Wars. In fact, my fondest childhood movie-going experience was when my parents took me on a surprise trip to see Return of the Jedi.
Well, how could they be jamming us if they don't know if we're coming? Break off the attack. The shield is still up.
Through the eyes of my 7-year-old self, it was cinematic perfection that far exceeded my mere childhood expectations. That experience will always remain the most magical movie-going memory from my childhood, and to this day, Jedi continues to hold a special place in my heart. Naysayers be damned, the Ewoks kicked ass. And scenes like this still bring me chills, despite the fact I've seen them dozens if not hundreds of times.
If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
So while Return of the Jedi remains my fondest movie-going experience in my life, fast forward 16 years to my most disappointing experience when I saw The Phantom Menace.
Credits will do fine.
No, they won't! What, you think you're some kind of Jedi waving your hand around like that?
Going into that movie, my inner 7-year-old self was yearning to come out, but instead it was like receiving an agonizing punch to the gut from the neighborhood bully. Needless to say, I was mighty disappointed, and that frame of mind held true for me throughout the entire Lucas prequel trilogy. For me personally, I didn't enjoy those at all, although I did ultimately get around to watching them all. It had just seemed to me that Lucas had lost sight of what made the original trilogy so endearing and magical.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating.
He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand. It's not fair. It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
Here everything is soft and smooth.
Oh my goodness. What made the originals so magical were primarily the characters and the chemistry they shared, and that includes the heroes, the villains, and everyone in between. It was the characters that drove that simple story to magical proportions. It wasn't about being bombarded with special effects. Even if you watch the original trilogy now, most of the effects still hold up today, especially when compared to something like Clash of the Titans. But some of the effects don't hold up so well by today's standards. What made the original magical was Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford and the incomparable voice of James Earl Jones and the inter-character chemistry. The simple story in the Lucas prequels falls flat mostly because the characters were neither interesting nor likable.
Here everything is soft and smooth.
And as far as the story, that was inferior as well. I'm still left scratching my head regarding the ending. Obi-Wan had just royally kicked Anakin's ass, and Yoda had effectively battled Palpatine to a draw. And yet the master plan of Yoda and Obi-Wan was to tuck tail and run, remain in hiding for years, and wait for someone else to come along who was both less powerful and less experienced.
Here everything is soft and smooth.
Holy shit. Fast forward again to 2015 with the release of The Force Awakens. Okay, I admit, I found this enjoyable, but not because I thought it was especially great. What I found most enjoyable was the nostalgia of seeing some of our beloved characters back on the big screen again. We got a strong dose of Han and Chewie, we got Leia, and we got what I still believe was a rather powerful cameo from Luke. Seeing these characters again is primarily what made this enjoyable for me. But in fairness, I thought this was a great deal better than the Lucas trilogy in nearly every facet. And the new characters like Rey and Finn and Poe, they were likable enough that it worked for me.
Some of it was good.
Pretty good.
What it ultimately left me wondering is why was Lucas in such a rush to make the prequel, which could have really been done at any time? That led my imagination to take me to a place where Luke, Han, and Leia all reprised their roles approximately 15 years earlier than they actually did. Anyway, they followed that up with The Last Jedi, which once again left my inner 7-year-old cursing like a truck driver. This one made the Lucas prequels look like the Godfather trilogy minus part 3.
What have I ever done to make you treat me so disrespectfully?
So here we are, and I have not yet seen The Rise of Skywalker, but I will, and perhaps sooner than later. I wasn't an especially big fan of Solo, but I actually did thoroughly enjoy Rogue One. I thought Rogue One was very well done, and until I recently binged my way through The Mandalorian, I thought Rogue One was probably the best Star Wars material we got since Return of the Jedi. Several friends of mine had spoken very highly of The Mandalorian, but with The Last Jedi still fresh enough in my mind, I went into it with almost no expectations. Early on, I was pleasantly encouraged when I discovered that this series featured the great Carl Weathers.
After this, you owe me a favor.
You got me curious.
You got me curious, Rob.
On the whole, I thought the first episode was a little dry, but it was good enough that it kept me curious. Then something happened to me over the course of episodes 2 and 3, something that hadn't been the case with any Star Wars material we've received since Return of the Jedi. I actually found myself becoming drawn into the story. I was genuinely interested in seeing where things went, and with each passing episode, I started feeling more and more connected with both the characters and the story. I was suddenly invested in the series, and I continue to remain so to this moment, where I'm eagerly looking forward to the next season. Well done, Disney Plus. What worked for me with The Mandalorian is that they actually did produce interesting characters, and the chemistry between these characters was very good. What's especially impressive about this is the fact that we never actually see Mando, except for that one scene, and that the mystery of Baby Yoda acts as an omnipresent driving force for the story. Sure, it also helps having someone as talented as the great Carl Weathers on board.
Apollo Creed meets the Italian stallion.
This is not real smart, kid.
Enough is enough!
I thought you said be cool.
That was cool.
You said 4.
Well, there are more. What can I tell you?
Carl Weathers is extremely well cast as Greef Karga, and Gina Carano is equally well cast as Cara. They're both terrific in their parts, and holy shit, Giancarlo Esposito.
You have something I want.
Who's this guy?
And all the rest of the acting and voicing were very well done too. But what The Mandalorian also did extremely well is that they embraced the ideals of the wretched hive of scum and villainy that made the original trilogy so damn charming. Whether it was the scumbag Jawas looting parts from the ship and driving a hard bargain, or watching Mando get betrayed by the fledgling bounty hunter, or watching Mando get betrayed by this crew of degenerate scumbags. Look at these lowlives.
It's better this way.
You deserve this! Let's go!
And he was also betrayed by his former working pal Ran, and lest we forget the topsy-turvy alliance he has with Grief Karga himself. And of course, we got a glimpse of Gideon in the last couple of episodes, and his presence adds to the ample promise that exists for Season 2. Because the way things left off in Season 1, the potential is real here. The mystery of Baby Yoda's fate is strong enough that they have the chance to turn this into something truly special. And this is all amplified by the fact that we have a compelling main character with a badass key supporting cast of heroes, villains, and in-betweeners alike. Did I mention Carl Weathers kicks a lot of ass?
You got me curious.
You got me curious, Rob.
In conclusion, I maintain that The Mandalorian is the best Star Wars content released since Return of the Jedi. Granted, I have not yet seen The Rise of Skywalker, but after the disappointment that was The Last Jedi, The Mandalorian has renewed my faith in the franchise. I applaud the efforts from the writing and production teams, I applaud the fantastic cast, and I applaud Disney Plus for bringing this to life. This show alone will keep me subscribed to the service, and I, for one, am looking forward to Season 2 with great optimism. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful night.
Because there's still a lot of people out there that think he won. There's a lot of people out there accusing me of having the fight fixed, accusing me of being a fake and insulting my kids at school. That's why.
Okay. You just make sure you wash him before you bring him back, all right?
Will do.
What a precious little creature. I can see why you didn't want to harm a hair on its wrinkled little head.
All right. Ding, ding.
Go on, you can gun me down here and now, and it wouldn't violate the code, but if you do, this child will never be safe.
Enough is enough!
You got me curious.
You got me curious, Rob.